So we have a few headlines today for Intel. The first one is the agreement of SoftBank to invest $2 billion in the company. What I found surprising about this is the market's reaction to SoftBank. As you know, it's a public company. They trade in Japan, and the market is down by 4% today after the announcement. This is not the case for Intel. Of course, shareholders are celebrating this news. And as you can see, I think Intel had the best run since February. And as you remember, February, so that there on the on the chart, it was when there were rumors that Taiwan Semiconductor will possibly buy the Foundry division. So I don't know. Interesting. This is just one of the news. I don't find it really attractive. It's just $2 billion. It's not that much. If you look at how much they paid $23 per share. It's not a premium. It's not a massive discount either. So prior to the announcements, the share price was about $23. I wouldn't say something big, This is peanuts. And what do I say is peanuts? Take a look at PP and EA. So purchase. I always get it wrong. Capital expenditures, purchases of property, plant, and equipment. However you want to call it, just look at these figures. Let me just move. Let me just move me around. Sorry for that. There you go. I think you can see this better now. 23 billion in 2024. That's how much they spent in Foundry. Most of that was Foundry, not all. That's a lot of money in 1 year. And if you take into account the amount since December 2020, it's pretty much 100 billion. So it's a lot of money. And this 2 billion stake, I don't know. I mean, is this really going to be, that? I don't think it's that important. What is important is the Trump stake, which it seems to be 10%. But there is a catch here, because this is not the stake will take into account the grant from the CHIPS Act. So it's a very weird deal where the company was supposed to have, I think it was about 10 billion approximately, if you take into account both the government, commercial and military production. Yeah, so the grant was up to 10.9 billion. And interestingly enough, a 10% stake in the company, it's about 10.5 billion. So I believe that most of that grant, from the CHIPS Act is going to be given to Intel in advance. So there are no milestones payments based on their progress in what's happening in Ohio, in Arizona, etc. That's going to be all upfront, of course, in exchange for 10% ownership, where the initial grant didn't include in the clause the ownership. It was just you get the money if you get some milestones payments, and that's it. But now it's like you get the money, but you give me 10% of the company. So is this bullish? I don't know. I really don't know if it is. The one thing I do know is that this changes the sentiment. And this is something that Intel needs. As you can see in the chart, since Q2 2024, this looks anything but bullish. So the company, the share price has been stuck between low 20s and mid 20s. And it's been just up and down, up and down, up and down. And of course, that's after a significant decline since 2020, after the company missed both waves in Foundry, because they lost that to Taiwan Semiconductors in contracting chip production. And then, of course, they lost the one with Nvidia in AI chips. So, of course, and with AMD as well for the CPU segment. I don't know. The company needs a turnaround in sentiment. Is this going to be enough? Possibly. So, from what I'm seeing, the deal is going to add some money, but 10 billion, 12 billion in total. When you look at the amount of money the company spends in Capex, and the guidance for this year, I think it's around 18 billion. Okay. This deal is peanuts. It's a lot of money, but when you compare it to the cash burn in Foundry, it's nothing. So overall, to me, this doesn't really change the picture for Intel. I believe that this probably will bring more news in the near term, as Trump is probably going to double down on his earlier strategy. As you remember, this was earlier this year, where Trump tried to get a deal with Taiwan Semiconductor to run Intel's foundry business. Of course, to do that, Taiwan Semiconductor had to partner with the likes of Nvidia or AMD. And of course, all these companies, they said, hey, we don't want that. And you wonder why? It's probably because of the 14A. It's not where, where people want it to be. So the yields are not there. Of course, it's early production. Mass production is only going to start next year with the Panther Lake. So I think the 14A doesn't have much future when you compare it to Taiwan's semiconductor process node. And this is one of the reasons why I'm not really bullish on Intel yet. Because yes, sentiment is likely to improve because of this news. But I don't think Trump is going to make AMD or Nvidia to use Intel's chips. I really don't think so. I bet he's going to try. Don't get me wrong. Make sure that in the next few weeks you will see a press release. Trump is asking AMD and Nvidia to buy Nvidia chips, or else they pay 30% tax on China. I'm 100% sure that's going to happen. And the share price is going to jump maybe by 10% in one day. The Intel share price, of course. Nvidia is probably going to sell off by 20. But I don't know. These players are not using Intel's chips, and there is a reason why. And it's because the product is not there. And yeah, I mean, the IDM 2.0 strategy, you see how things are going, right? So the major consumer of products in Foundry is still Intel. And from what I'm seeing, external customers are quite hesitant. In fact, in the last earnings call, the CEO signaled that Intel will only roll out the 14A tentatively, meaning that he needs to see enough customers committed to using it. And I think this is where Trump possibly will come into play. So he's going to somehow, don't ask me how, maybe he's going to trade the 15% tax for some commitments from AMD or Nvidia towards Intel. So maybe we will see something in that regard. But because the 14A is at a critical point right now, I think the involvement of the US government is going to help the company from a sentiment perspective. Okay, so some commitments from Nvidia are nice. That said, to go from a commitment to see the actual tangible result in the bottom line of the company is going to take a lot of time, and that's why I'm not bullish on Intel. So great news. I believe over the next few weeks there is upside. I wouldn't be really surprised to see Intel trading in the 30s, testing the 30s. I don't think it's far-fetched, because it just takes one press release, as I said, from Trump to say suddenly Nvidia and AMD are going to use the 14A, and that's it, and the share price takes off. But I think it's going to come down, because Intel is just, if you miss the train and now you start running after the train, you're not going to catch it. So, that's my point. These are the main points. As I said, 10.5 billion approximately from the US government and about 2 billion from SoftBank. It's pretty much peanuts when you look at the Capex that the company burns each year. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.